Hey, so it moves on to a part in your adolescence. Now, rather than me just read this paragraph here, there was a trauma that occurred in your adolescence. I'll let you elaborate on it, please. What happened when you were young girl?
Yeah. Unfortunately, at the age of 11, 12, 13, I experienced sexual trauma from a man who was known to my family.
Yeah.
And it was a really complete, just life-changing experience to be that young, to be an adolescent and have your first introduction to what sex should be taken from you in that way. It definitely, that is the trauma that sat in here the deepest and the longest.
And this occurred once, twice? Or?
It was over a few different, it wasn't just the one incident.
Was it over years, months?
11, 12, 13, so 3 years.
Wow, 3 years, yeah. And at that time, I know it sounds a funny question, but this is the question of the ignorant, Did you feel it as traumatic at the time, or does it become traumatic as hindsight of what and recognition of what has happened starts to surface?
At the time, I was confused. I was very, very confused, and I did not understand what had happened to me. So it didn't feel traumatic in the sense of what you would imagine trauma to be.
Yeah.
But I also understood that it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And that to talk about it would be uncomfortable and taboo. And so
you didn't talk about it with anybody?
Not until I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
I held on to it for a very long time.
And therefore, what was the effect? This occurred between 11 and 13, and you're in your 20s. Like, who have you become as a result of that trauma when you're in your 20s?
So what the experience did to me was taught me that the world can be an unsafe place. Right. It taught me that people are not always kind and gentle and loving, and that bad things can happen to children like me. And it caused me to take on in my family this role of protector. Yeah. Because I understood if this can happen to me, and this is a person known to my family, if this can happen to me, it can happen to my siblings. And I just took on this role of really trying to protect them. Really trying to protect them from any sort of harm, not just harm from this person. Yeah. Any potential harm that could bring that could come to them. And it became overwhelming, very overwhelming to think in that mindset. And then I took that with me into every relationship that I've had up until the age of 30. Every relationship in my life, my friends, romantic relationships, I took on this role of trying to protect this person. I believed that it was my responsibility to protect them from any harm or pain that they might experience.
Yeah. So this is the emotional and the psychological manifestation of what happened to you between the age of 11 and 13, that you are now the protector of all. And
that's a very stressful place to put yourself in.
Well, particularly when you're aged 18, 19, 20 and you're exploring who you can be, and yet it's already partly defined. You're the protector because the world's unsafe.
Yes.
And you therefore don't want other people to experience what you're still harbouring too, I might add.
Oh, it's the blind leading the blind when you're trying to do that.
Yeah. Elaborate on that statement. What do you mean by that?
Oh, in trying to protect others, I often ended up hurting both of us.
Right.
Because you can't, you have to heal yourself first before you can attempt to help somebody else. But also other people need to want to be healed or want to be protected as well. Yeah. Or want to take that step to support themselves,
But as their protector then, did that also put a pressure on them that they didn't embrace and enjoy, and so therefore that becomes the stress in the new relationship that you're trying to, formulate and grow? Did your protection of them and being that role, did that put a pressure on the relationship?
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a level of control when you're trying to protect somebody.
How did you start to dilute it? How did you start to move on?
It's Evie. It's Evie. She
Motherhood.
changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, because it was like this moment of realization that, oh, am I going to keep living this way? I'm obviously unhappy.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anybody a service right now, especially not my child.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst to really look inward and say, what's going on here, and what do I need to change in my life so that I can be a better person for myself and therefore a better person for my child and every other person in my world.
So I feel as if we're now coming back to where we were around about 15 minutes ago, because when we start to ask the question, what did you change? I get the feeling then that this was the catalyst for the discovery of processes, the discovery of activity that could bring you more inner peace, and understanding that you weren't defined by the trauma of 11 and 13 years of age, that you were a person that had far greater capacity than what you knew. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so the beautiful journey and awareness that you now live as a pursuit, and that you now utilize as a fight against your cancer. Yeah. Which is fascinating too. Yeah. Yeah. You there was a question early on in the podcast in which I said I would ask, what caused your cancer? What do you believe has been the catalyst of the cancer? It's not just bad luck.
No.
Yeah, you believe?
I truly believe cancer comes from somewhere in every person, and which is hard to accept when you're diagnosed with something very heavy like cancer, and then you have to say, well, this must have come from somewhere in my life. It's not just spontaneous.
Yeah.
The body keeps the score, right? I have traumas in my life, more numerous than what we've touched on here, because there are some things that for in respect to other people that we won't go on.
Yeah.
I have many traumas, and I held them in my body for so long that they manifested as disease or dis-ease in my body.
Yeah.
And, when you are traumatized, this is science as well. There are many research articles that show the connection between breast cancer, cervical cancer, and sexual trauma. This is researched. Other types of trauma as well, and other types of cancers, there's a link very strongly.
Yeah.
There is also links between lifestyle as well, but in my case, I know that that's not where this came from. I've always been a healthy person. It's absolutely trauma. It's the physical manifestation of me feeling the pain and the stress and holding it within me instead of actually releasing it in a healthy way. And it sat in there for long enough for it to become a cancer, and the cells mutated, and then they said, hey, we're here. And I'm so glad that that's how this happened. I'm so glad that it came out and said, hey, ping, ping, ping.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't find that, then I wouldn't be releasing the other stuff that was still in there.
There's an assumption in there, of course, and the assumption is that you're going to survive all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. The assumption is that you're glad that it's come out, because by coming out now at 34 years of age, you're going to be released to have another great chapter, or great chapters of your life that are going to be blessed and blissed by what's what's come out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I truly do feel that. I feel no sense of fear of death or of what's to come. And of course, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I say I have good intuition, and often my intuition is correct, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And I don't know realistically, but I feel very, very strongly that this is just a chapter in my life.
Yeah.